SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter could have a tough revenue collection year ahead of him as South Africans who are angry at the alleged abuse of government coronavirus response funds choose not to pay up. The Commissioner has reportedly told a South African National Editors Forum gathering about his concern that the corruption allegations could dent public confidence in the system. Some of the companies implicated in the cases so far, it's emerged, were awarded government contracts despite a failure to meet very basic tax requirements. Let's talk more about this then with the Commissioner Edward Kieswetter himself joining us by Zoom, I understand. Commissioner, good to have you on the program. So you said that the PPE corruption scandals dent public confidence and trust, that the money is well spent. How do you undo that damage?
Well, Tembekile, thank you. I mean, firstly to say, the worst form of corruption is to steal from the very poor and the most vulnerable, the very people you purport to be, in whose interest you are supposed to be serving. And so the procurement of COVID-related PPE equipment is really a sad revelation of the state of our society. As SARS, we have investigated over 130 companies for potential tax evasion as well as potential criminal offences. And as you pointed out, we found that almost half of the companies, more than half of the companies in fact, were not tax compliant. They abused the tax compliant tax status certificate. They abuse it by making false declarations, which unfortunately lets them into the but we have the ability to detect them, which we have. And then what is surprising, Tembekile, is that companies who have no previous PPE record or experience were awarded tenders. Companies like registered on our system as hubs or as IT companies, car washing companies, bakeries, property letting companies, which is clear evidence of abuse. Many of the companies, the minute they receive their money, they transfer it into third-party accounts. Just evidence that they are not bona fide trusted operators. Of the tenders we're looking at, we looked at the value of 2 billion of the awards. Of that, 1.3 billion it belongs to 22 companies who in fact are linked to politically exposed individuals. So you can see that the level of abuse of the system in the name and in defense of the poor is really a sad reality that we have to face.
The obvious question that raises, Commissioner, is that of why it is that so many companies were able to abuse the tax compliance process from the SARS end.
So what happens, Tembekile, in our system at the moment is such that a taxpayer gives permission to the Revenue Authority, rather not to the Revenue Authority, for a third party, typically a government client. It gives them permission to get from us a simple response as to whether they are compliant or not. One of the aspects of compliance is you must have submitted all outstanding tax returns. What we have found is that companies, in order to get that clearance, submit fraudulent tax returns simply so that our system shows that they're up to date with their returns. It is only then on closer inspection that we discover that in fact the declarations are fraudulent and incomplete. Now, it also therefore highlighted for us that we need to strengthen our system, and that's a project that we have identified and will attend to, so that the system in fact serves the intended purpose and limits the level of abuse such as we have experienced.
Just on that, Commissioner, because I think we're losing you slightly. I'm afraid we don't have the best line to you, but And I was having a different conversation, quite similar, in fact, about the corruption problem in the country. And one could easily argue that the corruption problem in South Africa has gone on so long over the past few years that one would have anticipated that there would have been an attempt to abuse systems such as the tax compliance one. You're now working on reviewing, I understand, the risk profiling process. How do you go about that, and why is it that all of these loopholes were not foreseen?
Well, in fact, a lot of these loopholes was part of, you may recall that soon after I joined, we formulated a modernization program of SARS. Sadly, the modernization of SARS had slowed down in the period that is described by the Nugent report as a breakdown in governance and integrity, a dismantling of core capabilities. So part of our program is to step that up. We have in fact now reconfigured our case selection and our risk profiling system, whereas previously a big focus of case selection and risk profiling would be the submission of declarations by taxpayers. We have expanded and increased the use of third-party data, but also unstructured data. We have access to the deeds registers. We have access to the business register, the population register, and by using artificial intelligence and an expansive data use, we're able to earlier detect any area of non-compliance and abuse. And we have already begun to do a number of exercises that has helped us to identify areas of VAT fraud, areas of under-declaration of income or overstatement of expenses, people who have houses but don't declare rental income. But it is a work in progress, and we would be the first to say to you that we need more resources and we need to have a single-minded focus to strengthen the integrity and the capability of SARS. And that is the work that we commenced, which is the project of rebuilding.
Internally,
reimagining what SARS can be.
Internally, then, Commissioner Kieswetter, are you looking at possible criminal activity from some of your own staff and officials, possible collusion with any of these companies?
We have in the past years, if I just step away from COVID specifically, we have successfully prosecuted and convicted some of our own staff in the last 12 months. We have, and it is in areas where they have either colluded with taxpayers in the completion of the returns or colluded with traders to misrepresent the goods and the value of goods that are imported to our borders. We will not tolerate, neither will we harbor criminals who we found among our own employees. It is a red card offense. We say that categorically. And so we have dismissed. Some of the cases are still in progress, but I can give you and the public the assurance that we will not harbor criminals. We will deal with it decisively. There is no place for people who don't share the integrity and the values that we are enjoined in, firstly by the legal mandate, but secondly by the expectation that South Africa can have of a tax authority such as ourselves.
You've said that in that forum with SANEF yesterday that you have had honest conversations with government about your concerns on how the PPE scandals are likely to affect tax revenue collection and confidence in a service such as yours. What assurances have you been given at the very highest levels of government?
I am assured that the President, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Economic Cluster Ministers, that they hear the caution that we raise. We have increased with a greater regularity updates on the revenue performance, highlighted and drew attention to areas where we are underperforming. So I am confident that our voice is heard. On the one hand. On the other hand, government is significantly constrained given the fact that we will undercollect 300 billion just in this year. So all of the departments of government are resource constrained, and it's a matter of prioritizing these things. Secondly, remember in the fight against COVID, there are the three competing or contending outcomes. The health outcome, which is obviously a primary outcome, has unintended consequences and negative impact on the economy and on the psychosocial profile of citizens. So when finally the decisions are made at the level of the executive authority, the ministers and cabinet, ultimately there are trade-offs that are made between these outcomes, and so you don't have a perfect outcome. We understand that. Our job is to continually flag the risks and the unintended consequences and hope that it factors into the final decision making.
Edward Kieswetter, SARS Commissioner, good to speak to you, sir. Thank you for your time.